Hello, thank you for joining me tonight at Bert's Books. Is anyone else in the Northern Hemisphere doing this game of chicken with ever putting our heating on in winter? Thank you, late stage capitalism, for this experience. I'll press on nonetheless. First off, I've had one of those unexpected shout-outs. Very kindly, Reading This Life has been doing a series of videos, it looks like, called Support Small Booktube, in which I was mentioned in episode 39. So thank you, Reading This Life. If you're not familiar, I'll post the link below. Go and have a look, go and subscribe, go and subscribe to the other people recommended there. There's I think everyone else mentioned in that episode was new to me, so there's a few people sort of popping up there I wasn't familiar with, but anyway, yes, much appreciated. All for a bit of a solidarity and whatnot right now. So what have I picked up lately? Well, couple of things in the last few weeks. First off, Richard Laymon's The Woods Are Dark. Now, this isn't an author. I don't think I've read anything else by him. It's not a familiar name to me, but I had a little look at the history. Quite a long bibliography. The Woods Are Dark, a 1981 horror novel. It was one of his earliest... I'm reading Wikipedia here, if you haven't sussed that. It was one of his earliest published works, and one he credited with having all but destroyed his publishing career in the United States. I'm guessing this edition might be one of the expurgated editions. It says here that I think this happened after he died, that a family member amongst his papers found the original manuscript, which had about 50 pages that hadn't been included in this. So I think there's been more recent reissues that present the book in its truer state. But anyway, it promises horrific things. Neela looked at the woman's hand. Slim, elegant, and even Californian tan, contrasted with the pale band above the knuckle that marked a missing wedding ring. She had painted her nails a pretty opalescent coral. This was a woman who cared for her appearance, had an eye for colour. Briefly their fingers touched. Then convulsively she flung the hand from her. The vomit rose, hot and bitter, in her throat as she saw the white flash of bone through the black clotted blood that masked the stump. Scuttering crab-like, the legless man creature. I guess that's probably... Is that it? It's got legs. The legless man creature that had thrown the severed object into the car disappeared into the roadside bushes. It's sort of foil stamp. This kind of has that look of, that sort of definitive early 80s horror look. I've not gone into it yet, so I can't tell you firsthand, but it looks kind of promising. Oh, incidentally, I'm stupidly amused by the fact that there's an anthology of this author's work, and it's called In Laymon's Terms. Next up, now I picked this up. Kuntz is one of those names. It's a name I've known for a long time. I've read other things by him. The Demon Seed. If you've ever seen that film, the kind of, the prototype of Alexa, I suppose, when your domestic computer goes bad, film of the 70s. I think he wrote that, but this, I picked this up. It was published, this one's from 1981. And it's one of those things that I'm not sure yet whether this is a book that I read probably age 14 or so. I read this horror book then, and I wish I could remember the name and the author now, but it's one of those kind of stalky serial killer books which involves this guy. There was some quite sort of deviant type stuff in there, which I don't think I was particularly prepared for at the tender age in which I read it. But You know, he was this kind of pervy stalker serial killer guy. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether this is it kind of looks like it fits the remit, but I'm not sure yet. A beautiful woman scarred by a hateful past, a compassionate cop haunted by a childhood bruised with poverty. Violence brought them together, and unspeakable horror may tear them apart. Bruno Fry nightly succumbs to the Whisper's malicious lullaby, losing himself in the dark night dreams, that's one word, of their rustling cries. He is deafened by whispers more piercing than any scream. In the dark recesses of his mind, no act is too violent, no deed too shocking. He is driven to kill, even if it means returning from the darkness of his own grave. I'd say, yeah, I'll have to. It's, you know, one of those quite thick ones, but I'm only about a chapter in, so I'm not yet sure whether it's the same book. Incidentally, the original book I'm referring to, not that it has any bearing on anything, but I think that book was my first exposure to the American term boner. I remember. I remember it for that. Anyway, last one. I'll keep this slightly brief tonight. This is a non-fiction work. It's not someone I'd heard of before. Harold Penrose, Adventure with Fate. Now, you can probably see from the illustration there, this title concerns the pioneering years of aviation, and in particular, it's a particularly ugly prototype there. I think that might be a Westland pterodactyl, possibly. I think it's like a 20s or early 30s vintage experimental plane. So yeah, Penrose, he was in the Royal Air Force Reserve Air Force Officers, RAFO, and he was appointed a Westland's Civil Aircraft manager of Westland's Civil Aircraft Department. It seems to be sort of history, it goes back to his childhood actually. He's, I think in his early childhood he was exposed to the real early pioneers of aviation, that sort of Blériot period just prior to the First World War, and evidently got the bug and made it his career. So there's a lot of detail about, I suppose, 20s through to the 40s or even 50s prototypes here. So there's some Second World War stuff, things I've never heard of actually, I fancy myself as a bit of a war bore, but there's some things I'm not really familiar with, like the Wyvern Mark II, things like that. So we'll see. I've only sort of got a couple of chapters in. It seems quite interesting, but it's another of those mammoth reads, dry non-fiction, I suppose, but historically possibly quite interesting. Anyway, that's it for the last couple of weeks. Anyway, I'll be moving on to my more, another of my more scripted focuses on a particular book quite shortly. But I hope everyone's doing okay out there, and again, thank you for the support of booktubers out there. And so hope we're staying warm, those of us in the Northern Hemisphere here. Catch you soon.